Hi, my name is Mike Dillard, and this is Self-Made Man, the podcast for men who want to leave their mark on the world and create a legacy of honor, integrity, and achievement in every aspect of their lives. I'm glad you're here, and once again, it is time to forge your destiny. Is it possible to walk into one of the largest, most established, and competitive industries in the world with no money and no experience and still win? Well, it turns out that it is, and today you're going to hear a true David Vs Goliath story as we speak to Eric Ryan, the co-founder of Method. In the year 2000, Eric and his co-founder Adam decided that the world needed a line of chemical-free home care and cleaning products, but in order to succeed, they'd have to take on billion-dollar companies like Proctor and Gamble, one store at a time. Well, they did it. Today, they're the largest green cleaning products company in the world with annual sales north of $200 million. And right now, you're about to find out how they pulled it off. So please help me welcome Eric Ryan. Well, Eric Ryan, welcome to Self-Made Man. Really excited that you're here and can't wait to dive into the story behind Method and the company that you and Adam have built. So welcome to the show.
Thanks. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. So I'm very familiar with your products. I've purchased your products, and I'm just super excited that we have an opportunity to speak with you today. So thank you so much for taking the time. And I would love it if you could take us back to the year 2000, where you and your childhood friend Adam are sitting around wherever, your apartment, your house, and you're like, you know what? Let's take on Procter and Gamble and the entire personal products industry and start something from scratch, because that's a big goal, that's a big project, and one heck of a challenge. What were you guys thinking back then?
Apparently, we weren't thinking tech because all of our friends were raising massive amounts of money for technology startups. And here we were doing soap, which, I mean, soap was totally innovative just 150 years ago. So we were just a little late to the party. But I came from a background in consumer products and advertising, and my goal always was to be an entrepreneur. So I had this thesis about how to start a company based on my skill set, which was I wanted to find a tire category, and I always admired how like Richard Branson would go in and find really tired spaces and find a way, in his words, to put an entertainment spin on it, to sex it up. So I love this idea of finding a really tired category and then figure out the cultural shift that category was missing, and in between the space, arguably would be the business opportunity. And so I just was spending a lot of time in grocery stores for another client project, and just started looking at the household cleaning aisle. And it was so big, but everything felt like a sea of sameness. So that was kind of clue dig here, and figured out that the first cultural shift the space was missing was lifestyling of the home. And back in 2000, from domestic media to the arrival of IKEA, like people were really starting to think more and more about their home as a place of personal reflection and design. And Adam was my roommate along with 5 other guys, and arguably what was the dirtiest flat in San Francisco. So, not exactly where you'd expect the birthplace of a cleaning revolution to occur. And Adam had a background in chemical engineering from Stanford, as well as working for the Carnegie Institute on climate change. So he and I started partnering on it, and then we realized, wow, the cleaning industry is really dirty. You essentially pollute when you clean, you use poison to make your home healthier. And we looked at the number of childhood poisonings that were occurring every year from common household products. You're like, sweet, if we're lucky enough to be successful, we're actually going to leave a legacy of harm. And so we realized there was a second cultural shift, which was this idea of sustainability and really bringing, health and wellness in a non-toxic way into this category. So I guess we're taking credit for it because we haven't found anybody who's done it before us, but really this idea of eco-chic, that something could be both high design and have deep sustainability in it. And, up to this point, either beautiful things were not sustainable, and products that were natural and better for you really lacked any sense of style.
That's a really big piece of this puzzle that I find interesting, as I live right across the street from Whole Foods in downtown Austin. And every time I'm going up and down the aisles, I have my marketer's eye on. And I'm always asking myself, if I had to come into this space and compete against these products, the very first thing that I would think about and be concerned about is the design. How do you make this thing stand out against the sea of everything else? Is that the first and kind of priority, if you will, when it came to launching y'all's product line, or the thoughts around it and how you were going to compete?
Yeah, definitely. It started from a design lens, and we did that for a couple of reasons. But it was a really bad business plan when you tell investors you're going to go up against the likes of Unilever and Clorox and P&G, or who I like to call P and the motherfucking G, and these guys have a 150-year head start. They really dominate distribution. It's going to be very difficult to drive consumer change fast enough that you've got a chance to succeed. And, design, seeing is believing, and design is so powerful to instantly change an experience or how a consumer thinks about a product or a brand. And so, from day one, the belief was the package will be the primary marketing vehicle. And when I looked across other consumer categories that were disrupted, I think that's a common theme. So, Ben and Jerry's brought us the pint. Before Ben and Jerry's, everything came in those big kind of boxes, and they brought us the more individual pint. Absolute brought, at the time, was very minimalist packaging design in a very ornate Russian vodka category. Even Red Bull with a slim can. And so we really wanted that to be our mark that we thought would give us the most really efficient marketing approach. And even then, once you start laying around marketing and press, it works a lot harder for you. At the end of the day, journalists want to feature pretty little things, so you're going to get more press out of it. Merchants are going to give you better displays because it looks great in store. And then when you turn on marketing too, in the form of advertising, ultimately you benefit from having a beautiful package.
Can you take us through that process? In my entrepreneurial experience, it's all been digital based. And what does that look like? Because there's got to be some method to the madness. You can't just say, okay, that looks like a pretty bottle. Let's throw it out and see what happens, right? Do y'all do consumer testing, when you have different varieties? What did that look like?
Yeah, so I think that you can break it down further. When you're starting a company, it's all about creating a sense of self-confidence, right? Because it's a really insecure place to be sitting there with a blank sheet of paper and where you're ultimately wanting to build something of meaning. And so the first way, as part of the design process, I'm a big believer in prototyping. Even today, prototype, and get out of PowerPoint hell as fast as you can. And so what we did is we created a concept book that kind of laid out the vision, and we gave it to the 20 smartest people we know from different diversity of backgrounds. And we didn't tell them tell us what you like about it. We said, shoot holes. Come back with the 3 biggest reasons why this is going to fail. Because, nobody wants to stop on anybody's dreams. And so everybody's always polite, trying to champion and tell you to go for it when they may see some serious flaws. And when nobody could come back with any serious flaw other than scratching your head of I'm just not sure why anybody hasn't done this before because it seems so obvious, that gave us the confidence to move to the next step. And, we had very few dollars for design. So a lot of it was DIY initially. I found this camping fuel bottle in Norway that we used as the model for the first spray bottle. Worked with a great local designer, Michael Rutschek, who I knew previously. And, you're kind of begging, borrowing, and stealing to get design help. And from that, we created the first 4 products. And then the next stage of confidence is getting into a store and seeing, does it resonate? We really didn't do any consumer work between creating the original design. But then once we went in, we sold it to about 20 different Bay Area independent grocery stores, got it on shelf. Then we started doing consumer research because I wanted to understand how people are reacting to it in the real world. From there, we refined the design a little further, and then we started taking our next step into hiring Karen Rashid and actually going after really great industrial design as a differentiator.
Did you all bootstrap this entire project, or was there a turning point where you went ahead and raised capital?
Yeah, I mean, we followed, I think, a very traditional entrepreneur path. So the first step was bootstrapping it, where Ab and I pooled together what few dollars we had. And each time we would take money, there was a very clear roadmap of like, what do we need to prove with these dollars? So the money that we launched with, what we had to prove was that we could create a tangible product and go get it into a local store. Once we did that, we did the, friends and family round, which is often called the angel round. You realize why they call them angels, because they essentially save you from death. And with that round of money, the goal was to get proof of concept of scaling it locally. And then once we succeeded there, we ran a Series A with the goal of scaling it to regional distribution, which meant going into like the Ralphs, the Safeways on the West Coast. Then from there, we raised more capital with the proof point of like, we're going to take it now national. And that was with the Target launch.
Okay, cool. Awesome. And, I'm just envisioning those first local stores putting the product on the shelf. It's like, once it's on the shelf, what do you do? For me, I'd kind of feel powerless. It's almost like you have to sit there and cross your fingers and hope that people will buy it. Is that how it was? Or were you guys setting up little demo tables, that you see?
Yeah, it's no, it's like looking back at the photos, it's such an awkward start.
The tie was amazing, right?
Yeah, you just look back at that, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe we survived it. Yeah, so it's all about getting those proof points. And so we didn't have a marketing budget. And essentially what we did was we would tell these local stores, we will do demos. And of course the demos were done by us. So it's one of us standing in a store. And we were really using that to both obviously try to push this distribution and promote it, but it was also a way of getting consumer feedback. And then I still so vividly remember when we cut the products into the first store, taking one and buying it myself, and just being amazed that the barcode actually worked. Like, oh my God, it works. So that was a really great, a great first moment.
What were some of the biggest challenges that y'all faced along the way that really stand out to you?
All of them. We were pretty clueless what we were doing because, again, my background was in advertising and marketing and actually creating a tangible product, manufacturing it, selling it in, finances, capital raise, all of that was new. But I do believe, if you look at who disrupts industries, the common theme typically is it's an outsider. And it really helps to be naive. And when you're naive, I think it allows you to take on challenges and risks that most people otherwise wouldn't do. And so for us, it really was like balancing. I think just the learning curve was so steep. But the biggest challenge, of course, was like balancing the capital needs with the growth of the business. And even today with Ollie, and we're already in revenue where Method probably was in year 5 or 6. That's always in a growing company and an ongoing challenge of getting that balance right.
Well, let's dive into Ollie real quick, and that's spelled Olly for everybody listening to this. And if you could, let's talk about the inspiration for that business, because it's in it's a fairly different market. It's consumables, but it's essentially a health and wellness company.
It is, but the way I always thought about the kind of evolution of health and wellness is this idea of in you, on you, and around you. And Method was more on you and around you. So our personal care products, they go on your skin. Our home care products, of course, are around you in your home. And so kind of within that trajectory, I like the idea of doing something next that was more a product you would digest. And it's a very similar approach to Method. I was doing a project called Made to Matter at Target, and we were identifying different brands around specific health and wellness categories, and we couldn't find a brand that we thought was inspiring in the nutritional supplement. So I just started looking at that aisle, and it was the same kind of light bulb moment with Method. It was like, here's a really crowded space. It's a big category. There's a real sea of sameness. And when you're in the aisle, you would actually literally see people stressing out to choose something that's supposed to be healthy for them. So that was a clue to dig here. And then trying to figure out, okay, well, what's the cultural shift? We definitely saw an opportunity to create a way better product experience. And we realized the cultural shift is really bringing a sense of lifestyle. And if you look across any other health and wellness category, from fitness with like SoulCycle to cold pressed juice, they've really brought a more elevated lifestyle experience that's aspirational, that motivates you. And even though like lifestyle can be such a superficial word, when you person talks about trying to be healthier, they usually say, I'm trying to live a healthier lifestyle. And so that's what we set out to do. And the entire thing happened real fast. I created a little bit of a high level concept, showed it to a senior executive at Target, Jose Barra, and just wanted his kind of initial feedback on it. And his response was, how soon can you do this? So within 14 months, we worked closely with Target and we created a product line of 20 different items. We had to raise the capital, put the team in place, customize, tool, formulate, develop the entire thing, and have it ready for a national launch in 3 parts of the store and the cover of the circular on day one. Mm. So it was definitely a go big or go home moment.
I've got some very good entrepreneur friends who are in the same space. And what, if anything, have you found surprising when it comes to supplements and the quality of ingredients and the sourcing? And what's y'all's philosophy behind yours?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things that drive it. The first is on the efficacy. We call them expertly blended, but our goal is to ladder everything up to a clear benefit. So we just don't sell melatonin, we sell sleep. We don't sell biotin, we sell beauty. And those products are layered together to create a more efficacious approach. On the sourcing, when you see what we did with Method and just the sense of transparency, honesty, and openness with everything you do, it's not hard if you really care about what you're doing. And we've got a great team, and we're really passionate about making sure we understand how we source, how we manufacture, and the quality of everything that goes into it. But this is a category, it is regulated. People think it's not regulated. It is regulated, not at the same level as like OTC products, nor do you want it to be, because at the end of the day, like a lot of these are basic building blocks of life, and nutrition can't be over-regulated. Otherwise, you'll create, barriers to being able to promote the right levels of nutrition. And the way we think about it is, the bigger kind of cultural shift going on is we've got a society that is so much more focused on treatment versus prevention. And the best minds and the biggest dollars go into really treating somebody once they're ill, because you can get patent protection around those. Obviously, you'll pay a premium when you're trying to solve a problem with your health versus prevention. And that's what great nutrition is. It's about being proactive about your health, hence bringing it back to this idea of lifestyle.
Couldn't agree with you more. And I'm just super excited that that's become such a big popular trend, over the last 10 years, specifically with the rise of Whole Foods and people just being conscious about what they're putting in their bodies and the price that will be paid down the road if they're not conscious about that. Obviously same with the products in our home. We use all natural products every opportunity that we can. I have a 5-year-old, and whenever he stays at somebody else's house and he instantly starts wheezing when he goes to bed at night, that they're using, detergent, laundry detergents. It's full of chemicals, and it's just physically making him sick.
Yeah, people really don't think the connection to, what goes on your skin goes into your bloodstream. So, that's how patch medicine works, right? And any chemical you come into contact with on your skin, it finds its way into your bloodstream. And, we live in a country that does not prescribe to the precautionary principle, meaning the government assumes that every chemical is safe until proven otherwise. Where in Europe, they take more the opposite approach. You just assume everything's dangerous until proven safe.
Wow. Amazing. So to transition a little bit, back in 2011, you and Adam wrote a book called The Method, 7 Obsessions That Helped Our Scrappy Startup Turn an Industry Upside Down. And as we talked about right before the call, I ordered my copy as soon as I found out about it. Unfortunately, it's not going to be here for a few days. But I love y'all's philosophy. I love your approach to business and product development. Would you be willing to walk us through those 7 steps?
Yeah, and the way we thought about, where the 7 obsessions came was when we were originally creating the business plan. Our philosophy was we could, going up against such difficult competition, we couldn't have one point of differentiation. We needed multiple points of differentiation and how we set up the entire business to compete. So, when we went to write the book, it was a really easy book to write because basically all we had to do is talk about what we were doing. And you probably see in the book and the reason we did is, we love the idea of you give away your ideas, it forces you to create new ideas. Method very much as a learning organization. And within the book, we talk about each chapter is kind of split between, ideas to steal from us. Like, okay, here's what we think we got right. Steal this idea from us, make it better so we could steal this idea back from you. And we wanted that to be very practical. We have an error autopsy of like, here's a mistake we made, because, learning from your mistakes is so much more powerful than learning from what did work. And then amuse, the belief that there's always somebody out there doing it better than you, so go learn from them. And kind of walking through them, first and foremost, this idea of create a culture club. And we believe culture is your only true sustainable competitive advantage, where everything in this world can be copied overnight, but you can't copy culture. Trying to create a culture that has the ability to continue to innovate in a predictable manner is really, really important. And then driving kind of on top of that, this idea of creating advocates, not consumers. A consumer or a customer just kind of signals it's a transactional type of relationship. And when you're a small brand, you want to create advocates, meaning people who love your product so much they will, go out and advocate on your behalf. And it's even if, you're not necessarily creating somebody who's going to share out, it's just the mindset that you don't want to create customers, you want to create fans. We love this idea of kick ass it fast. The idea if you're not going to be the biggest, you better be the fastest, and having agility. And that was always our thesis was, if you're asking somebody to, as Steve Jobs always said, get out of the Navy and jump on the pirate ship, that sense of agility, is really, really important. Be a green giant, and the idea of like really driving sustainability into everything you do. We try to create an organization where everybody really understands the importance and also, what it means to be a sustainable company. And it's not a top down, it's more of a bottom up. And so that allows, if everybody knows, like, you have a really healthy conscience in a company to always do the right thing. And you can't look the other way and make a choice on a material that may be cheaper or more convenient to use, but ultimately is going to do some form of harm. And then win on product experience, which the idea of winning on experience versus an attribute. So at a fundamental level, you've got needs, wants, benefits, attributes, benefits, experiences within a category. And to really be differentiated today, it's not enough to win on an attribute or a benefit. Like, it's really about the overall experience.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely agreed. And one of the things that I've been thinking about as I've been listening is, before I actually transition, I don't want to take us off track. So as far as the 7 goes, were there any others that we needed to cover?
No, I think did I hit all of them?
Okay, I wasn't counting, and I was like, oh crap. Sorry, I missed
I missed this design. Just the overall power of design, and we are big believers. And for us, it was never like design or sustainability. It was always about the two, bringing together style and substance. And great brands have tensions, and that's what we wanted to do put that tension in the product, which gives it energy. That this thing is beautiful and smells great. It's something you want, but yet it's also good for you, good for your family, and good for the planet.
How do you create tension in a product?
You create tension by bringing together two opposing ideas that haven't existed before. So Target's a good example of expect more, pay less. Starbucks does it with the fact that Starbucks really is all about convenience, but at the same time, it's your everyday little bit of a timeout and treat for yourself. And I think that's why it's so hard for big companies to create new brands or really unique product experiences, because strategically, it doesn't always make sense when you're trying to put, two opposing ideas together that on the surface might not seem like they belong together.
Yeah, interesting. Very interesting. What I found is that who you are as an individual when you first start a business has to transform in a pretty big way as that business grows, meaning the skills and the knowledge that will allow you to, make that first $1 million in sales in a year is very different than what's going to allow you to lead a team of 100, 200, 300 employees and go after your first, $100 million a year. Did you go through a similar learning curve and experience, and what was the most difficult part of that for you?
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest challenges for an entrepreneur. And you're right. The skill sets to create something and start a company versus the skill sets to run an established company are very, very different. There was a great article maybe back in 2005 in the Harvard Business Review called The Entrepreneur's Dilemma. And it was exactly that thesis, which their argument was an entrepreneur really has two choices: go for control or go for financial growth. And if you try to do both, very, very few have been able to achieve that. Like the founder of FedEx is probably one of the few that have been able to start it, but also run it as it turned into a large company. And I think someone who has a really great operational mindset and it's an operational company can do that. But in other places, it's really hard. And I also subscribe to the belief that really great companies have a duo at the top of an artist and an operator. And the entrepreneur tends to be more of the artist, and it's not necessarily your designer or creative per se. It's more the idea that you have a really great skill set at creating and laying out, inspiring people around a vision versus the operator who's really good at making sure the trains run on time. And so what happens in a lot of companies is the entrepreneur tries to stay in that position of control as a CEO for too long. And at Method, we brought on a CEO very early. And Adam and I, represented more of the artist side of the partnership. And Alistair, at the time, who's now Drew, really brought those great operating skills. And what it did is allow us to create a business that we think, has a great sense of creativity and imagination and can innovate, but also can be a very predictable, financially successful business at the same time. And there's not many in the world companies that can do both.
Yeah, no, agreed. And that's interesting. I did not realize that y'all had brought in a CEO. And, the way that I think about that in my brain, and I don't know what this says about me, but, I'm looking forward to launching my next business and hitting that inflection point where that kind of individual is needed. And the way I think about it is it's like, okay, it's time to bring the adults in where I get to do the fun creative part of all of this. But when it actually comes to growing and managing, hundreds of people and accounting and finances and all of that stuff, it's just not in my wheelhouse or something that I necessarily enjoy doing. So that's really interesting. How did you find that person? How did you find your CEO?
Both CEOs came to us through previous relationships, which I think is always the best way to recruit. And one other thing I'd say about that too is like a simple way to think about it is you have to have pioneers and settlers. And entrepreneurs tend to be really good pioneers. But once you have an established business, you need somebody who has a little bit more of the skill set of a settler. And then that frees up the entrepreneur to keep finding ways to drive new growth in the business without the burden of running the day-to-day. And it does put you in a position where you feel more comfortable to continue to take risk, which an entrepreneurial-driven company needs that mindset. So in both cases, our CEOs, they came from previous relationships. The most recent one, Drew, who's been running the company now for, I think, 6 or 7 years. He was head of North America at Whirlpool. We were working on a partnership with Whirlpool. That's how we got to know him. And then when we made the decision to do a new CEO search, he threw his hat in the ring and ultimately got the job and has just done an amazing job. And it's a great partnership. And it requires an entrepreneur to put your ego aside, to think like an owner. At the end of the day, you want to grow your ownership in this business, make sure it's successful. And if that means bringing somebody in who's got a better skill set than you to get the company to the next level, that's the right thing to do.
When y'all were first starting out, let's say you're hiring your first dozen employees, money is obviously at that point very precious, very scarce. How did you approach that? Were you using the funding that you took from VCs to essentially pay their salaries? Was the business producing enough revenue to cover that? Were you setting the expectations of, hey, we've got to run this as lean as we possibly can, but there's opportunity for you, down the road with stock options or whatever it may be? I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So, our comp philosophy, first and foremost, is everybody has to be an owner. And that is just, I think, really important that the entire company has an equity stake in the organization. So that was always an important part of our overall mix of how we compensate.
Can you describe a little bit what that looks like? Is it based on time at the business, salary, their position? Like how do you do that in a way that everybody loves and is fair, if you will, quote unquote?
Yeah, it's tricky. In fact, the second time around, I think we got it right here at Ollie. Method the first time around, it was a little bit more subjective. What I would recommend that we've done here is we've created very specific bands. So if you're coming in at call it, VP, director, manager, associate, whatever level you're coming in at, we have predetermined what the right option grant band is. That band also changes over time as the company becomes more stable, because you want to make sure you reward the people who came on early when the company was at a greater risk of even succeeding. Over time, as that risk gets reduced, therefore the overall option pool also gets reduced because it's less risky of what you're joining. And at the same time, the equity is starting to take on greater and greater value. So we've organized in a way so it's really, really clear, well aligned with the board. And any new hire, we know exactly what band they're going to be going into within that time frame.
Interesting. And was that based? Did y'all model that off of another company that you studied, or was this just formulated in house?
A little of both, because every company is unique, and your comp philosophy also is going to be distinct. Our lawyers helped draft it based on what they had seen in other startups. The challenge is a consumer products company has a different risk profile as well as upside than a early stage tech company. Right. So it really does vary by industry.
Yeah, interesting stuff. That fascinates me. It's such a different world when you can stop worrying about selling a product and generating revenue on a daily basis, and you actually get to work on the company and on the business.
It's nice doing it the second time around where I've seen the movie now and being able to map these things out so we can scale rapidly versus getting yourself into a corner where you gave so-and-so so many options and you need to course correct that with the next person. And yeah, it's really nice the second time around.
What do you have in mind for your future personally over the next 5 to 10 years? What are your goals and priorities?
At the heart of it, it's I feel my passion, my excitement is being an operator as what I would call a social entrepreneur, creating companies that have a sense of greater good to them. I'll continue to stay involved with Method indefinitely. We've got very aggressive plans of how we're scaling and growing Ollie, and we think the impact it can have more broadly in the world of nutrition. And I dabble a little in private equity. I'm an operating partner in Encore Consumer Capital. And it really helps to sit on both sides of the desk, where sometimes I'm raising capital and other times I'm on the other side where we're evaluating, potential opportunities. I sit across boards, and it helps give me a little bit more of a broader view of just the landscape of what's going on within consumer products.
Yeah, that's super cool. Something I am passionate about as well. So we've got a couple of minutes left here. I want to be respectful of your time, but two questions for you. One is, what is your biggest challenge right now, personally or professionally? What's stressing you out? What's a priority for you that you're having a difficult time with?
The biggest challenge is just balance of life. And
you haven't figured that out yet?
It's a life project. I think I'm getting better at it, but it's a life project. I've got three little kids who I want to spend as much time with them and be as, just a massive part of their childhood as a very hands-on dad. So I've structured a lot of my work-life balance around that, from the location of the office to how I structure my hours. And then, against the backdrop of a startup where a to-do list is never done. And so I've learned, I think, much better about how to set clear growth goals and priorities, and not to try to take on too much, be much more focused in my work, continue to hire the most amazing people I can find, set a big vision, delegate like hell, and then get out of the way and help them where they need it. So that's always the challenge, I think, in your 40s when you're trying to balance family and work. And this, the second thing I would say, kind of related to that, is, happiness comes from really being content with where you are and what you have. But yet, I think to be an entrepreneur, you're inherently always driven, to keep growing and new experiences, and trying to find that balance of being happy where I am today, but yet that need to keep driving and growing and in life is hard. So I think the way we kind of try to solve that is back to the culture of our work, that we want to make sure it's not about the destination, but really about the journey, which I know is such a cliche. So we've done things like we've set up Ollie. We're here in a national park. I'm looking out right now at the Golden Gate Bridge. We've got bikes on the wall to jump on and go for a bike ride down on the beach at any point. We do a lot of meetings walking around the park, and we've started a tradition called Recess. So try to do our best of once a week to get out and do something together, whether it's kickball or yoga or go for a hike, and really try to find that balance so you're really enjoying your work, and in the end, it helps keep the stress away.
Yeah, so true. It's a fight that we, I think, all go through on a daily basis and requires constant adjustment. And yeah, it's a tough one. I can absolutely relate to that for sure. So, last question for you here. Really is just very simply, what final piece of advice or words of wisdom would you like to leave everyone here with today?
Yeah, I think for anybody that's looking to start a company, and kind of going back to that point, it's such a daunting task to see where you're sitting versus the mountain you want to climb. And I always encourage everybody, just break it down to bite-sized little steps. I mean, the actual mechanics of starting any kind of company, when you break it down, it's not challenging. It's just the collective challenge is just, it's a mental, at the heart of it, it's a mental game. So like, I always encourage people in the beginning, like, don't even worry about starting a company. It's really about proving, do I have a good idea? And you first try to prove to yourself, then you try to prove to people you respect, and then you try to prove to consumers. And don't think about it as starting a company, just think about it as a project to prove this idea. And then once you've done that, before you know it, it starts to evolve into a company. And then always when you look at growth, just keep breaking things down to bite-sized little steps. Here's the money I need. Here's what I'm going to prove with this money. And everything else just gets so much easier.
I like that. I like that philosophy on use of funds. That's a new approach that I have not come across before, but it keeps it simple. It keeps the pressure low, and then you're just, like you said, laying one brick at a time until you end up with your house at the end of the process.
Yeah, and I always ask myself at any stage of a company, what is more likely to kill us? Growing too fast or growing too slow? And always asking yourself that question, because a lot of companies do die from growing too fast as much as they die from growing too slow. And always trying to make sure you're hitting the right cadence of growth it's hard to do.
Yeah, interesting. Well, Eric, this has been awesome, man. Thank you so much for the time today, and I have learned a ton. This is definitely one of my favorite interviews that we've had a chance to do. And for everybody listening, I would encourage you, go support Method. Pick up some Method products for your house. It's better for you, better for your family, and I cannot wait to read the book as well, The Method. And it looks like you've got an Audible version as well. So I'm actually gonna download that and listen to that during my workout today. So really looking forward to that. And thank you so much for the time today.
No, I appreciate it. My pleasure.